Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. If you'd like to listen to us today, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. We won't be taking calls today. Some of our engineers have become ill, and so we're kind of short-staffed today at GCN. So we won't be taking calls today, and it'll make it a little easier on the engineers who are, they're running 5 or 6 shows at a time and with about half staff. So Scott is engineering the broadcast today in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Captain John Regan is with us. Welcome, Captain John Regan.
Good morning, Vincent. That explains the panic in the voice when they answered at GCN.
That explains it, yeah. Yeah, and so I got the message that they're running short-staffed, and I said, I'll tell you what, maybe we can help by not taking some calls today. They said, that'd be great. Thank you so much. And, you know, it's really difficult because we have an engineer who is maintaining all the controls at the GCN end and operating the controls and taking the calls and making sure the signal's good, fine. And if we get disconnected, reconnecting us. So it's a full-time job. Well, if you have to do that for multiple shows with just one person doing it, it's running back from studio to studio is really, really difficult, especially when the phone's ringing and taking the phone calls in one studio and picking them up in another studio, that kind of thing. It's difficult. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible and have the broadcast run as smoothly as possible. And the other broadcasts that are running simultaneously as well at GCN. You know, John, I had a great evening. Mrs. Finelli and I had a chance to have dinner with Dr. Norman Shealy and Dr. Sergey Sorin, Ed from Florida, and Sergey's wife. And on the way back, it was dark. I'm coming up our road, our dirt road, and we saw this light ahead, a dim light. I thought, what the heck is that? And so we stopped, and there was a guy on a bicycle with an AR rifle, dressed in very, very dark clothing. So we put the window down, and the guy was next to Mrs. Finelli and on her side of the truck. And I said, "Are you okay? Need any help?" And he said, "No." I was all right. I said, "So what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm just visiting a friend, and I'm going to see my girlfriend." I said, "Who's your friend?" He said, "Well, he lives, on this other road. That's about 4 miles down the road." I said, "Really? So what are you doing right now?" I said, "I'm just spotlighting deer." I said, "Well, I hope not. Because if I hear a shot, I'm going to come back out here. And we don't want that to happen, do we?" And he said, "No, sir, no, sir." No, sir. He knew that I was not kidding. It's absolutely illegal to shoot deer at night. It's illegal to shoot deer from the road. My cows are in the field right where he was. And it would not have been a good day for anybody. And so the word is getting spread even farther that this is not a good place to go hunting. And we've kept it that way for several years, and we want to keep it that way because we don't want to be shot with stray projectiles, and we don't want the hunters shooting each other, and we certainly don't want the hunters shooting our cows. And there's a refuge on our farm for deer, and we've been protecting them, and we don't want them shot. So it's been a full-time job protecting the deer. But it was nice to meet this man under as pleasant circumstances as he will ever experience with us. But we don't appreciate hunting from the road. We just don't appreciate it. John, your thoughts?
I guess the good news is that doesn't sound like he was a supporter of the witch.
Right. He's not. I don't think he supports the witch. Another thing I'd like to share with our class is this is the third time that our car has been impacted with a deer. One time, a deer jumped over a fence on a high bank, above the road, jumped over the fence, landed right in the side of our truck. I don't know, $1,000 damage. Deer died. Just, apparently came out of nowhere, and obviously didn't come out of nowhere, but that was like the experience. Another time, deer jumps over the fence, lands right in front of the truck. Oh, I don't know, a couple $1,000 worth of damage. Deer dies. And over the weekend, deer runs from across the highway between two cars or two trucks and lands on our bumper. Even when you're going less than the speed limit, even when you're not being reckless, even when you're being vigilant, it still happens. And we're not the only ones that have had deer run into our cars. Well, our trucks, I should say. Now it's a couple $1,000 worth of damage. I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. And so this time it's the grill, the front bumper, the fog lights, and the supporting plastic pieces that have broken off. I mean, it looks like the car was heavily damaged in the front. I'm sick of these hunters scaring these deer to death. The deer panic, they jump, they hear a shot at night, and they race out, and they go whichever direction appears to be away from the shot, and they run into vehicles. And they get killed anyway. I'm sick of it. It's costing us a fortune for these reckless, irresponsible hunters who shoot at night. Deer are in a panic. What happens is, early in the morning, just as the sun rises, that's when these hunters snipe at these deer. And just as the sun is going down, they snipe at the deer, and the deer are literally in panic. Then you've got these jerks out there with spotlights and rifles at night. I hate it. And I'd like to do something about it. I don't know if a public hanging would be too extreme or not, but it's really getting expensive for us. We're in the multiple thousands of dollars worth of damage, over these 3 incidents. And I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. I don't know what the answer is, but I'd like to hear an answer. I'd like to hear a really good answer. Maybe hunters need to post some kind of a bond, and that bond is distributed among all of those who have these massive car accidents, because insurance goes up for everybody because of this recklessness. And as I said before, I'm sick of it. And I don't appreciate hunters anywhere around our farm. I just don't appreciate it. And I wish I could figure out the answer, because if I could, I would do it. The only thing I've been able to figure out is to approach these guys and let them know that this is absolutely positively not the place where they should be playing with their rifles, because we don't like it. Any comments, John?
just brought to mind an article I'd found. I think it was like the 10 deadliest animals in the United States. And people think of, snakes and, even dogs.
Mountain lion,
kind of surprising how high cows were on the list. But if memory serves, I believe number one was deer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they run out in front of the car, and especially if you're traveling at highway speed, it can be deadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and cows, I remember one of our cows got out in Virginia. Big black cow, I don't know, 1,000 pounds. And we lived on a lonely road, and this young guy with a pickup truck crashed into our cow. Now, I'm talking about a road that has no paint on it, no yellow line, no white line, no line down the middle, no lines down the side, just a paved road, bare minimum for a paved road. And speed limit should be, 25 miles an hour. This guy totals his truck. And I see the dead cow on our neighbor's front yard. So I went out there and I followed the transmission fluid all the way to this guy's house. No question about it. Forget who he was, and I called him up. I said, so he hit my cow. He said, yeah, my son did it, and I want you to pay for my truck. I said, you lost your mind. You hit and killed my cow, and you want me to pay for your truck? And what happened was his son was obviously going too fast for conditions. This was during the daylight. So I can sort of understand how cows can be dangerous, but actually I think that they're more dangerous when they step on your feet. I mean, if you're wearing sneakers and a cow just, leans over and takes a step onto your sneakers, man, oh man, oh man. That hurts. But that's no reason to kill a cow. Okay, John, you've got a tremendous amount of class material for us today. I'm really excited about the button pusher. I'm not sure when you're going to do that, but man, oh man. Captain John Regan's with us. TheFinancialStateOfTheUnion.com, EZE33.org. Please click on the news tab, follow along in class. We'll be right back. Class, if you're interested in gun show activities, Lexington, Kentucky. That's November 25 through 27, Lexington, Kentucky. Sedalia, Missouri, November 25 and 26. Knoxville, Tennessee, November 25 through 27. Springdale, Arkansas, November 25 through 27. And Lawrenceville, Georgia, November 26 and 27. That's the arcade gun shows, arcadeshows.com. John, back to you.
Well, there's a local theater that had a screening of The Wizard of Oz last week, and tickets were only $3, so we'd never seen the movie on the big screen, so we decided to take advantage of that. And I happened to notice a few things. Of course, with what we've been doing on the air over the last few years, you start looking at things differently, even if you'd seen them many times before. The movie was filmed in 1939, and that was during the Depression, but it was before the nuclear age. And I saw how different the people looked. I noticed things start to look different after the radiation, and then after pumping the more chemicals and glyphosate and fluoride and other materials to us over these last few decades. We just don't look the same as people did a century ago. And I happened to notice when Dorothy first got to the farm, I was looking at the farm animals. Those chickens were huge. I also noticed when she was on the yellow brick road in the area where they came upon the Tin Man, had the apple trees. Those apples were huge compared to what we see in the stores. And I also noticed on the farm that the cows were small. And of course, we've been breeding cows to make them larger to get more meat. Mm-hmm. And it was just so interesting to see the changes that's happened in such a small period of time.
John, our cows are small because we want them that way. We raise black Angus cows, and we've got a few red Angus. Their coats are kind of a rusty reddish orange, but for the most part, we have black cows, and they're black Angus, and they're small compared to a lot of the other farmers around because we want the old style cow. We want cows that have not been messed with. But we've got neighbors who have huge cows. Their cows are 1.7 times, 1.6, 1.5 times the size of ours. But and that's a problem for us. And I'll tell you why. Because we get taxed per head. So the G-men and the G-women, government, tax us not by the pound, but by the head. And who do they think they are? So we're at a disadvantage again because we don't want to mess with these extra large cows because it's a flat tax per animal. So for Donald Trump, what we want to do is, another thing we want to do is reduce taxes by 50% as a start. That's a good start. 75% is really where I'd like to be as a good start. But we'll accept a 50% reduction in tax. And I hope that in your neck of the woods you've thrown out everyone who is running for re-election. Everyone. We tried here. But you're absolutely right. And the chickens were huge. They were literally huge. And that's not the case anymore. Yeah, please continue.
Well, given that Thanksgiving's coming up and that we've just gone through this extended election period, I'm going to try and go light on the turkey today and get to some of the areas we haven't covered lately.
Okay, great. Captain John Regan's with us. I'm Ben Finelli. We'll be right back. Captain John Regan's with us. John, where would you like to start?
Well, let's quickly cover a tale of two droughts. California, the northwest corners, looking better after those storms came through last month. And Texas is looking a bit worse. In fact, we've got a small corner of northeast Texas that has gone into drought 3 condition, which is extreme. There's only one more category getting worse. And if the winter shapes up like I think, it's going to be dry in the south. So likely we'll see Texas getting worse this winter. But I wanted to cover You Can See It Coming, which was an article out of Breitbart. 100 million trees dead in California. That's huge. And of course, when a tree is dead, it's more likely to catch fire. And there's several ways that can happen. It can just be a simple lightning strike, an act of nature. It starts a fire, and with that much tinder, it's not going to be pretty. You can have careless people accidentally start a fire, or you have people that love to start fires on purpose. Regardless of what starts it, don't be surprised if you see huge forest fires in California upcoming in the news.
John, it's interesting that you mentioned this. We had Howard Godfrey on the air last week, and he wrote a book about preparing and survival. It's a fabulous book. And he talked about what happens when, let's say the grid goes down, people start leaving wherever they are and they want to stay warm at night. So they'll start a little fire, and not everyone has been trained, as a Boy Scout or Girl Scout, or even their parents or someone it'd be nice if someone did train all of us about fires, and so not all of us know how to handle fires. So there'll be lots of fires being started by those who are looking for food and traveling outward from wherever they are to obtain food and shelter and those kinds of things. And so in the future, it could be a lot worse. And then with the drought, it makes it even more dangerous. And one of the things that we're doing here on the farm is making sure that our track loader, which is like a bulldozer, is ready to go, and we're clearing fire breaks to make sure that we can protect ourselves from fires. And we have had fires, not on our farm, but in the area, a couple miles away, and we see the smoke, and it's not a good feeling, because we know that fire departments flat out are not equipped to handle those kinds of fires. So it could be absolutely devastating. And the point I'm trying to make is, you're right. You're absolutely right, John. And we've been talking about these dead trees and dying trees for a couple of years now. We've seen the evidence, and now it's making the news that, trees are dying.
Well, let's go to the gift that keeps on giving, Fukushima. Totally ignored during the election cycle. And and this week's list, 59 cities reporting radiation above 1,000 counts per minute, and Bakersfield, California, came this close to making 2,000 counts per minute, 1,996. It's unbelievable.
I got a call from Miles this morning, Miles in Europe, senior instructor, and he was telling me about the West Lake landfill. So hopefully during sometime this week, Miles will be able to call in and give us an update. It will not be today, but hopefully he'll be able to give us an update as to some of the information that he's found. And it's darn dangerous. And we're talking about the West Lake landfill in Missouri. There's an underground fire there just outside of St. Louis. Radioactive waste has been buried there from the Manhattan Project. And right next to that is a dump. And there's an underground fire in the dump. And last report was they're about 900 feet apart. Less than a quarter of a mile apart. 3 football fields apart. And the fire is advancing toward the radioactive waste. When that happens, the radioactive waste will become airborne. And it will be heading toward a neighborhood near you. And we'll keep you apprised of that. But it's just one more story of government stupidity, government failure, government ineptness. And that's why we need to replace everybody. Everybody in government needs to be replaced. Back to you.
Let's go ahead and remind people what's in that area. To have just a small exclusion zone, that would include the St. Louis Airport, Interstate 70, and then you also have the Missouri River there, and it's just before it feeds into the Mississippi. So when the fire hits that radiation, it's going to have an impact on American lives.
Yeah, all the way down the center of our country. Typically the winds blow from the west to the east, so the east coast will get their fair share. It's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And it could have been prevented by not dumping that toxic waste there. It could be prevented by stopping this underground fire. I mean, it's very, very difficult. Or putting a barrier between the waste and the radioactive waste in the fire. But what are we doing? Well, we're investigating it and we're talking about it, but we're not doing anything about it. Typical of what government does. You know, imagine having a property. Imagine being an owner of property right near there. What do you think your property is going to be worth as more and more information about this disaster is released? What do you think? Do you think it's going to go up in value? Do you think it's going to go down in value? Do you think it's going to go to zero? You know, there were mansions. I'm talking about $1 million home right outside of 3 Mile Island. Magnificent. Couldn't be sold for $25,000. Why? Because it's in a deadly area. And I can see the same thing happening to St. Louis.
Well, let's slide on down to bigger picture. Obama's other gift, and in the financial section, we've got Obama's gift. Obama's other gift, he's now number one. Obama sets new record for regulations, 81,640 pages in 2016. And in fact, he holds the 4 top spots. Only Bush in 2008 holds anything else in the top 8.
John, I'm thinking about this. Exactly what you just said. 81,640 pages. That's in 2016. Let's say we assigned homework and we said, I'll tell you what, class, there's only one thing we want you to do. We'd like you to read Obama's new regulations for 2016. That's all we want you to do. John, I don't think we could do it. I don't think a single person could read, understand, and internalize 81,640 pages of regulations in a year. I don't think a person could do it. Do you? If that's all you had to do, forget going to work. Forget, doing the laundry, taking out the trash, mowing the lawn, servicing your car. Forget all that. I think it'd be more than a full-time job to fully understand what those regulations mean. I don't think it could be done.
We had an article on that in the last few months, and I believe it was, if you wanted to read all the federal regulations, it would take you about 25,000 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, that chart, would you mind telling us, that's this year. What about some of the other highlights? Obama has written more regulations or has had more regulations published in the Federal Register than any other president, right? I mean, he's number one, if you add them all up, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Bush in 2008, 2004, 2002, and 2005 are some of the top ones. And other than Obama and Bush, we've got Clinton in 2000 with a little over 74,000, and Carter in 1980 with a little over 73,000. And keep in mind, the year's not over. And if he keeps on adding regulations at this pace, he will go over 90,000 pages for 2016.
So if I'm reading this correctly, John, Obama has had, well, he's the number one rank for the number of pages, but he's also had enormous numbers of pages for 2010, 2011, 2015, 2013, 2012, 2014. It's unbelievable. And there's more than that. It's out of control. Who writes this stuff? What do you, John, do you think Barry has actually read these regulations? Do you think he's read them? I'll bet you he hasn't. Unless he's a lot smarter than we are. And that's not possible.
Goes back to the military-industrial complex.
We'll be right back. John, just a quick diversion. Now, I'm looking at BBC.com, and I've been thinking about this for days and days and days. And, how do we talk about this? So, here's the headline. Michelle Obama, quote, ape in heels, unquote, post causes outrage. So here's what happened. Pamela Ramsey Taylor, who runs a nonprofit group in Clay County, West Virginia, referred to Mrs. Obama. And here's what she said. And there was it says, Pamela Ramsey Taylor, it will be so refreshing to have a classy, beautiful, dignified first lady back in the White House. I'm tired of seeing a ape in heels. Okay, that's what she posted. Facebook. And it caused an outrage. 85,000 85,000 people, I suppose you could say, signed a petition to throw out this woman out of her little mayor's job. And they got her out. They got her out. And the point I'm trying to make is, I wasn't very polite, that's for sure. And then what else has happened? Well, the designer, the dress designer for Michelle, said she will not design for Mrs. Trump. Well, that's great news. I mean, I don't want to see Mrs. Trump being dressed the same way as Michelle. I think it looks like Michelle has a tent maker at times as a dress designer. So I'm looking forward to being proud of the first family. I don't support calling or referring to Michelle as an ape. But, there are times that she just flat out didn't look like a first lady to me. John, do you have any comments, or do you want to avoid commenting?
I want to try and get through some more articles before the top of the hour.
Go.
And you may have to refresh your page. I had to update a link. Santa may have a problem, and that should bring up reindeer tragedy as 80,000 starved to death in catastrophe linked to climate change. It rained where they normally live. Apparently this is in West Siberia, and the heavy ice made it to where the reindeer could not feed, and thus they starved to death. And it's, to me, a preparedness type thing, because you never know what kind of strange weather you're going to get that can totally change what you're planning. And in the button pushers, transport baking soda, go to jail. A couple had some baking soda in their car, and a $2 police drug test, which is wrong a third of the time, caused them to be in jail for 2.5 months. So a nice, inexpensive test ruins people's lives. No big deal.
So what we're talking about is this couple had some baking soda with them. He is a former cop, as I understand it, and they had it in their during a road trip, so they had it with them. Now, what's wrong with baking soda? It's got lots of uses, including brushing your teeth, which I do. I use baking soda every day for brushing my teeth. Sometimes I add salt, and so it's common. It's less than $1 a box. And so these guys had it, and they got picked up, arrested, and they spent, a couple months in jail, a month and a half in jail?
2.5 months.
2.5 months in jail.
Couldn't make $10,000 in bail.
And where they were, it was cold and drafty, and they were not provided socks for the concrete floor. Just a miserable existence, and Mike Parsons can tell you all about that. Well, it's an outrage. And then you wonder why. Cops are shot, for doing things like this, the Blue Plague. It's an outrage. You're right. This is a button pusher. It makes me angry when cops do stupid things like that. They're not even smart enough to know about baking soda.
Well, the
Seriously.
test told him it was cocaine.
Yeah. Well, and they're not smart enough to know the difference. These are cops. They're trained. They're trained to know what cocaine looks like. And so they arrest these guys, put them in jail, deprive them of being able to pay their mortgage or their truck payment or whatever they've got. That's all. What do? They say they're sorry? Let's have a couple $1 million compensation for these people and fire the cops. We'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. You're absolutely right. This is an outrage. And you can find the story on the financialstateoftheunion.com news tab or eze33.org. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. And class, if you could hold your calls for today, we'd appreciate it. We're short-staffed here at GCN in Minnesota. A number of our engineers are not feeling well and called in sick. And so the engineers who are on duty are running multiple broadcasts simultaneously. Kind of a difficult task for them, but they're up to it. They're the best. They're the best that we've seen. So if you can, hold your calls today, and we'll begin taking calls again tomorrow. And I'd like to thank the engineers at RBN as well. They're fabulous. Fabulous as well. Okay, John Regan's with us. John? Johnny there? Hey, I wonder, looks like I'm here. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I see the bits going up. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for John Regan to get back with us, I'll tell you something interesting. For those of you who have dishwashers, you may want to consider adding just a little bit of vinegar to your dishwasher. And it will help disinfect your dishwasher and make it run a little bit cleaner. So let's see. Let me see if I can find some of these. Okay, and a toothbrush. So you can use a toothbrush and you can use some vinegar to clean out the crevices and remove some of the mold and so forth. So use that before you add a little vinegar before you start your dishwasher. Do we have John Regan, or do we still? John, are you there?
I think I'm here.
Yeah.
I think I'm here.
Hey, good. Glad you're back. I was just talking about using a little bit of vinegar in the dishwasher. You can use white vinegar and run it, and it will help disinfect your dishwasher. Okay, so what's next?
How about some spy tech and control?
Oh, man, there's plenty of it, right? And we're going faster and faster all the time, aren't we?
It is absolutely disgusting, and the first one, beyond CRISPR. Oh, yeah. Man, and I learned something about CRISPR during this, too. Salk Institute has developed a new technique to edit our DNA. With CRISPR, apparently it had some limitations that it didn't work on cells that don't divide often, because apparently it's the division process where it gets the opportunity to go in and do the editing. But we don't have that limitation anymore, thanks to Salk Institute. The process is called HITI, and it can basically edit any of those. It's I was trying to get to the point where it described it. The joys of having to go through tons of data. Anyway, so instead of having to settle for parts of the body, they can now modify pretty much anything. Of course, it's hailed as a cure for incurable diseases. And of course, there's always the good side that they push on this type of technology. However, consider the weaponization of the technology. And that's where it gets to be absolutely frightening. Just imagine having your DNA changed and, not, you may not even have a say-so in it.
John, are we talking about going to a doctor's office and for like a routine checkup, and doctor says, well, you absolutely need this injection, and a little while after, maybe weeks or months after, you become different? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not familiar enough. I got to do some more research, but I think it'd be possible that this could even be put in with, vaccines. And
that's what I'm talking about.
And of course, they're trying to make it to where you can't refuse those. And especially if you live in California, you're already at that point. So besides the toxins that are in vaccines, just imagine having material that could edit your DNA.
Turn you into someone who is docile, someone who is predisposed to diseases that can wipe you out, make you immobile, alter your thought processes. Can you imagine that? And be forced to take them.
Yeah, we've read a lot of spy thrillers. Of course, we got James Bond movies that are popular. Imagine a DNA alteration that would make it to where you can't produce a certain required protein, or shuts down the process of a certain critical part of your body. Maybe you can't absorb oxygen. Whatever it is. Using that as a weapon of assassination, and it might not even be detectable.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Very well put. Those are my concerns. And are you going to be talking during this hour about spreading vaccinations through the air?
That's where I'm working on getting down to.
Okay.
On the second under spy tech is really big data. And we've talked about self-driving cars. Well, those cars have a lot of sensors. Has cameras, radar, sonar, GPS, and LiDAR, which is lasers. And all of those produce quite a bit of data per second. So an autonomous vehicle produces 4,000 gigabytes of data per day, every day. And to express that in another way, that's 4 terabytes of data every day. And imagine that kind of database, because it's turned every car, you think of those sensors, every car is now a surveillance device.
We're talking about cameras in the front, cameras in the rear, right? Sonar, radar, GPS, and LiDAR. Absolutely outrageous. John, not only am I concerned about the amount of data that's being produced per day of the flood, the data flood in autonomous vehicles, but what about being just around them, having the radar blast you from behind? One of these things is behind you, and you're just traveling along in your old Chevy pickup truck or your old Ford pickup truck or your old car, and right blasting through your window is radar. What about the oncoming vehicles that are blasting radar into your eyes? The LiDAR into your eyes? What about all that? I'm concerned about that. Those are physical threats to our bodies. And who's this brought to us by? Who's doing this, John? Would this be Intel?
Well, we've got a lot of tech companies out there, but don't forget, you also, the cars aren't just going to be traveling down the road, not communicating. So you'll have everything from, your Wi-Fi, your cellular, maybe even another spectrum thrown in there. So.
Yeah, and then there's the audio, right? Then there's the audio. And what happens when you pull your vehicle into your driveway? Do those cameras shut off? Or, let's say a person lives in a neighborhood where everybody has a quarter of an acre or a third of an acre or an eighth of an acre, densely packed. Now you have all these vehicles pulling into these short driveways. And are we looking out the back of the vehicle across the road or across the street at our neighbors? Are we going to have our neighbor's vehicle spying on us? Are those cameras going to be able to be turned on remotely? I would think that would be something that would delight these people who are foisting this technology on us.
Well,
so
look at what we already know with cell phones and with laptops. Those cameras can be turned on remotely. Yeah.
Right.
So that's not be any different.
Right. Right. So my thoughts are, I don't want to have a vehicle like this. And I don't want to support those companies who are producing vehicles like this. I think we need to start boycotting companies that do this. We've been effective in shutting down the spying. At least initially we were effective. There were these antenna arrays set up in a couple malls in Virginia and in California for Black Friday to track shoppers. We were effective in shutting that down because we rang the alarm and we gave out the phone numbers and we literally got that shut down. But the only way you can do that is by raising your voice, ringing the alarm, and boycotting the stores and the companies who are using these technologies to make ever-increasing profits. So I'm not interested in a new car. I'm not going to buy one. I'm not going to support these thugs. We'll be right back. Captain John Regan's with us. John, 33 days, 13 hours, 36 minutes, 16 seconds until Christmas. Class, please don't get trapped into buying things for people you don't like with money you don't have for Christmas. Please don't get trapped into it. It's a sad commentary that there's a website that's days to, you just type in on a web search engine, days to Christmas, and you'll find the website. And there's Santa, and there's Christmas presents. And I've totally forgot the meaning of Christmas. It's all about presents. It's all about commerce. Please don't get trapped into that. John Regan? Wow. Did we lose John? Jeez. Well, what do you think it is? Let me just check again. It looks like, I'm looking at my screen here. It looks like the signal's going out with just a third of a second delay. That's perfectly acceptable. I can see the view meter. It looks good on my end. So where's Captain John Regan? Johnny there? Okay. Well, class, I'm looking at a Gallup poll, and it says the real unemployment is 9.5%. I don't believe that either. I believe that it's way higher than that. And it says that record high 77% of Americans perceive the nation is divided. That I actually do believe, actually. I'm kind of surprised it's only 77% see us as divided. I've talked with some people, and they just can't believe that some people actually supported Hillary Clinton for CEO. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine people supporting her, defending her? They just don't understand about the deaths and the murders and the coercion, the corruption of the Clinton clan. So it's hard. It's hard to understand how people just can't ferret out the news for themselves. They're just reading and watching what is presented to them, opinions of others. Do we have John yet? John Regan, are you there? Okay. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about the Westlake landfill. So, here's an article, thebulletin.org. On July 16th, 1973, 28 years to the day after the first nuclear weapon was exploded at Alamogordo, New Mexico. And I've been there. I've been to Alamogordo, New Mexico. A line of dump trucks containing the deuterious from the uranium used to make plutonium for the test bomb showed up at the Westlake landfill in Bridgeton, Missouri. Assuming the trucks were loaded with clean fill, the landfill superintendent waved them through without charging a dumping fee. A truck driver said later that he and others used the black stuff in their home gardens. A truck driver said that they used this black dirt in their home gardens. Can you imagine that? But by October, several thousand shipments were illegally dumped in the landfill in North St. Louis County in violation of federal standards. They contained an estimated 43,000 tons of radioactive uranium, processing waste and contaminated soil. Now, under the national news media spotlight, a landfill adjoined to the Westlake dump has experienced a growing underground fire for the past 5 years. The fire is estimated to be about 1,000 feet from the radioactive material. It's really less than that. It's about 900. Consultants for Missouri Attorney General Chris Koster indicated in November 2015 that, in the worst case, the fire could reach the radioactive material in a matter of a few months. Now, this was back in November 2015. An official for the Republic Corporation, which owns the landfill, contends the fire is moving away from the waste. If the fire reaches radioactive waste, the St. Louis County Emergency Plan warns that there is potential for radioactive fallout to be released in the smoke plume and spread throughout the region. Now think about that. Think about the schools. Think about the homes that will be impacted negatively, seriously negatively, by this catastrophe. Captain John Regan, I'll be right back. Captain John Regan is with us. John, please continue.
The joys of live radio.
Yeah. So what happened? Do you know?
As the segment started, I lost the return and didn't hear anything until the outro.
Yeah, I didn't hear you either. So okay. Yeah. Yep. There you go. All right.
Well, let's pick up the third item in spy tech, carbon, the next generation. And IBM is creating carbon chips that can make computers 1,000 times faster. And if you're thinking, why do they need faster chips? One, think about all that data that's got to be crunched from all the autonomous cars. But there's another side of the carbon chips. It allows them to make flexible computers and injectable microchips. Isn't that just wonderful?
Yeah. John, every time I hear about technology improvements, the first thing I think about is how awful. I don't, I used to think, wow, faster microprocessor, this is great. And what happened is, believe it or not, John, we used to be able to use a computer that was blazing fast for word processing, spreadsheets, databases, and, like 16 megahertz. But with all the spyware and all the antivirus software, and as web pages became more filled with advertisements, you need faster and faster and faster processors. We used to have blazing fast word processing with very slow processors, right? DOS was incredibly fast. But we've improved it to the point where we need these faster computers. So then we started saying, yeah, but this new processor is going to improve Windows and it's going to be faster, faster, faster. But now I don't see it that way. I see as my computer's plenty fast, and it's maybe 10 years old, 8 to 10 years old. It's plenty fast for what I'm doing.
Well, I think we need the faster computers because of dumber people. I told you we went and saw The Wizard of Oz last week, and Becky was telling me that once the transaction went to the payment mode, she was looking down at the screen, and it put up images of money. So apparently we can't even have kids put in numbers anymore. They have to point to a picture to say what kind of money they're getting.
Wow.
Oh, that's a 20.
Are you talking about the people behind, the cash register, if you will? That person?
That person.
So this is a 1, a single, as they used to call them. This would be a 5. This is what a 10 looks like. A $10 fraud, Federal Reserve accounting unit denomination. Yeah. Wow. Okay. We certainly can't make change. We have to do that for them.
Hopefully most people use cards so they don't have to mess with that nasty stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ran across an interesting article. I called it a quantum look. The title is actually Researchers Claim Quantum Computing Breakthrough and Explain It Using Beer. But that's not what I'm wanting to cover in there. And if you want to read it, you've got the link. But in, I guess, the third paragraph, it talks about, how bits use zeros and ones, and quantum computers use qubits, which we've talked about before, where it can be 0, 1, or both. Well, this was worded in a different way that caught my attention. It says that quantum computers are designed around using qubits, which can be 1, 0, or any superposition between those numbers at the same time. And, being a numbers person, that stood out because between the numbers 0 and 1 is an analog of every number that exists. There is an absolute infinity between 0 and 1. And that's staggering. I know most of you probably even haven't had any classes that considered infinity. But if you can just think about that, pick any number, and it's there just between 0 and 1.
So we're talking about an infinitely large computing ability, aren't we?
And that's kind of the secret to the quantum computers, is it's able to use all of those numbers in between. For the positive numbers, all you would have to do is put a 1 over it, and you've got that number. And of course, there's literally an infinity of other possibilities there. If it's a negative number, then it would just be the negative 1 over that number for the numbers that are less than negative 1. So
John, let me see if I understand this. So we now would have the capability of putting a serial number on every grain of sand on every beach. Is that correct?
Well, that has to do with the number of bits that you string together. This is, think of the bit being able to think of any number that exists at the same time, just between 0 and 1. So it's more than just the light being off, on, or both. It's the infinity of everything in between. And if you want to hop over to the metaphysical side of things, we talk of God being the infinite. So basically they're trying to hijack God's ability to create these solutions. And like we've said with quantum computers before, the way that the people that work with them describe it is they load the problem, and then it's like it's shipped off to another dimension, and the answer comes back.
This is difficult for humans to even think about, John. The average guy is going to have trouble just thinking about this. I am.
I have a computer science degree, and it's problematic. It resembles, magic more than it does science.
John, have you studied scalar technologies at any level?
I know they exist. I have not been able to dive into the actual usage of it.
Okay.
And
the reason I'm asking is I had dinner with Norm Shealy and Ed from Florida, Sergey Sorin, and we were talking about this new technology that Norman Shealy's working on, scalar technology. I'm having trouble understanding what it is. And so I did a little bit of research, and I'm more confused than ever. So I was just wondering if you had done any research on that.
Well, even the terminology on that starts to be confusing. You're working with longitudinal waves, and unlike the electromagnetic fields that we're used to working with, where you've got the inverse square law, so that when you double the distance, it's the power of the field is inversely squared proportional to that, so it drops off rather quickly. That's why when you're right up against a cell tower, you get all those bars, and as you start making distance, it starts dropping off exponentially rather than in a straight line. However, with scalar technology, it doesn't do that. It's the same. You've got full field at a distance.
Let me just read one line. And this is in Wikipedia. It says, and this is examples in quantum theory and relativity. In the standard model of elementary particles, a scalar Higgs field is used to give the leptons and massive vector bosons their mass via a combination of the Yukawa interaction and the spontaneous symmetry breaking. This mechanism is known as the Higgs mechanism. A candidate for the Higgs boson was first detected at CERN in 2012. So I'm still scratching my head.
Yeah, I was one of those people that was good at science and math, and I have problems. And this relates to Tesla as well. He was working with scalar technology.
Gosh. Okay, what's next?
Well, the one you wanted to get to under the control section, as seen on the last ship. And we caught up on another season where they looking at how do they get the cure out there. And they developed a way of doing it by making the cure transmissible like a virus. And here comes this article. It was in the Natural Blaze. New transmissible vaccine spreads like virus. No consent necessary. And these are, technologies being talked about in, respectable journals in science and medicine. And they're saying it doesn't take very much transmissibility for the vaccine to spread throughout the population.
Let's talk a little bit more about this when we get back. Captain John Regan's with us. The Financial State of the Union.com. And this is pretty scary to me. We'll be right back. EZE33.org. Captain John Regan, are we saying that this sneezing can be the new delivery system for death? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I guess it depends on exactly how it's transmitted. It could be through sneezing. It might be through contact. It could be through other bodily fluids. I guess the good news in this type of delivery system, you don't have the toxins that get injected to you like mercury and aspartame and other items. The bad news is that even without going on to some speculation, is that vaccines can actually cause the disease you're trying to prevent, at least over a short period of time. They've seen that with the polio vaccine, where someone gets vaccinated with the polio vaccine, and then for a certain time, they can actually spread the polio virus itself. So the cure could cause a pandemic. And then we talked about this new HIDI DNA editing process. And I don't know if that could be weaponized into a transmissible vaccine form. But if it could, that becomes exceedingly frightening.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, John. So a person is selected because he's going to be flying, let's say New York to Los Angeles. And this is an imaginary case. So the person's selected, and they say, okay, before you go, let's keep you safe. And so here's your immunization. So the guy gets an immunization, gets on the flight, starts sneezing because that's part of the complications of the injection, starts sneezing and then spreads throughout the cabin of the aircraft whatever it is he was injected with, as a way of killing people. And then they all get it, and then they go see their family and relatives and loved ones and coworkers, and and they start sneezing, and now this thing's spreading like wildfire, all from one guy on an aluminum tube propelled through the air. That's what I'm seeing in my mind. Is that something that we're talking? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, see, the thing is too, you're thinking about people. Yeah. They're also talking about using this type of technology on animals.
Too many rabbits, right? Too many deer, too many cows.
Yeah. But what if the animal could just be a carrier of the quote-unquote vaccine? They could, put this into rats and mice and squirrels and just have it running all throughout the countryside. And as people come in contact with, the droppings or whatever, they could end up becoming infected with the vaccine, whatever the vaccine is, and start spreading it to people. So there's multiple vectors on how they can do this.
It's absolutely terrifying. And we have people who are willing to do this.
And as the title said, no consent necessary.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless at the, we talked about with this about these people being defective. Norm Shealy and I talked about people being defective, and boy, you'd have to be defective to want to do this. This could get out of control very, very easily. Or it could be deliberate.
And this goes back to the WikiLeaks emails. To understand just how evil those at the top of the Democrat Party are, and more than likely it's the same for the Republicans. Most people don't even want to consider that type of evil, much less acknowledge that it exists and that they might support them.
A lot of us are not even capable of thinking about that kind of evil. That just doesn't... We weren't built that way to think about these horrible things. Captain John Regan, thanks so much for being with us. And we get in touch with you best by what? EZE33.org?
That's the shortest one.
Yep. Or thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. Captain John Regan, thanks so much. And you're going to be here tomorrow.
Yes, I am.
Yep. Thank you, Captain John Regan. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.